And we are live. Welcome to NBA Live Before Lock. It is Friday, May 23rd. I am Josh Engelman. That is Greg Ehrenberg. And we are here to break down Game 2, Knicks, Pacers. We might have some fun in DFS, but it's going to be pretty difficult to have a more fun game than Game 1. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. I'm excited for this one because I don't think we're going to get too excited for the Thunder Wolves. This one should be fun, I hope. What's up, Greg?
Yeah, one thing, for whatever reason, playback isn't screen sharing right now. I'm just getting the circle of death while I'm trying to screen share. Doing my best, but kind of outside of my control right there. So hopefully audio's working okay. But yeah, just can't screen share outside of my control right there. I'm super excited for this game. Game 1 was absolutely sick. There's going to be all kinds of bad blood going into this game as well. I have a feeling the Knicks players are going to be pretty bitter about how that game ended, and perhaps at Tyrese Halliburton in particular. Maybe they get a little bit physical with him today. It's going to be a really interesting game to watch. I'm looking forward to it.
You and me both. There we go. Switched up the overlay. We're not doing a DraftKings best ball stream. I didn't notice it. And I shared OddsShopper on my end. I didn't have any trouble sharing it, so I got it up in playback now for us.
All right. It doesn't show up for me on my end. It's still just a black screen, but whatever, it is what it is.
It might have been up when you tried to do it, but we're all good here. Wade Hogg said you're muted in playback.
It doesn't say I'm muted. I'm just gonna leave playback.
You are muted. I can't hear you in playback.
Yeah, it doesn't say I'm muted, but obviously I'm just having some issues. I'll just leave, go back in, and now it should be a non-issue.
I'll wait until I hear you echo, and then I'll mute it again.
Yeah. How about now?
Yep, you're muted. Or now you're echoing, so now you're muted to me. Sorry.
Technology.
I can hear you on playback. Those are the words that I need to say so that everybody understands what's happening. Speaking of what's happening, we have this game, and as usual, I don't really have too much to say on the Knicks side. They're going to be the same dudes that are always playing. I think the talking points here are the Pacers, and it's what's the relationship between Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, Benedict Mathurin, Ben Shepherd, who got dusted off in the most important minutes of the game last time out. What is happening with the center rotation between Miles Turner, Obi Toppin, and Thomas Bryant? To me, that's where like the most interesting conversation points are. What is the most interesting thing to you?
The center rotation for the Pacers, for the main reason being that Miles Turner got benched down the stretch of last game, and there were so many things that happened towards the tail end of that game. But you had the Pacers down by like 20 points with a few minutes left. They come all the way back primarily because Aaron Nesmith hits like 6 threes in a 2-minute stretch. But you already had Miles Turner was barely playing at the end of the game even before then. So there is this part too where it's like, I don't know how much of last game, which is Toppin also played really well off the bench. I don't know how much of that is going to be replicated today, how much of it was just circumstance last game, how much of it was the Pacers were down by a lot and then they're playing well and getting back into the game. So Carlisle just left the same guys out on the court. I will tell you, my intuition is to lean back more towards the rotations we've seen the entire year and not think that they end up doing what they did in game 1, which if that's the case, it would mean there's a pretty good opportunity to be rostering Miles Turner tonight.
I'm with you. I don't totally know why Rick Carlisle did what he did. I didn't agree with it while it was happening, and it didn't make a ton of sense. When you're trying to make a comeback like that, I would want the guy that shoots threes and rim protects to be out there for that. He didn't. And it worked. So as I said on our strategy show, no one's going to talk about it because every single shot for the Pacers went in for 5 minutes. If it didn't work out like that, I think we'd be having a big conversation of like, well, why the hell was Ben Shepherd out there? And why weren't they ever trying to get a stop by not having defense on the floor in those spots too? I tend to think the same as you. I think that's going to end up being more of an aberration to that particular game, which does make me slightly more interested in Miles Turner, slightly less interested in Obi Toppin, although I do see the upside in him. I think the really crazy part is 1K Thomas Bryant. And the reason I think that's kind of crazy is I never expected Thomas Bryant to get the extra rotation He checked out at the beginning of the fourth quarter, sat down for 2 minutes, and then he came back in for 3.5 minutes. That was the Turner replacement first before they went to Toppin. What do we do with a flat 1K Thomas Bryant?
Yeah, and that's somebody else who I find to be really tricky for today, because if we're assuming that you get back to the normal minutes out of Miles Turner, well, that means that Thomas Bryant loses out on playing time, because those minutes have to come from somewhere. Like, some could come from Obi Toppin, but I would also think some of them are going to come from Thomas Bryant. There's a part of me too that kind of suspects there's something we don't know that happened with Miles Turner last game. Like, he rolled an ankle, wasn't feeling well or something like that, because it was so out of the norm of what the rotations normally look like. Now, with that said, Miles Turner is not somebody who's typically playing 40 minutes. Fouls are a big reason as to why. He's somebody who typically struggles to stay on the court for big minutes for that reason. But you still look at the closing lineup they went with last game. More often than not, you have to assume from looking at the entirety, not just of the regular season, but the postseason as well, that Miles Turner would be out there in the closing lineup. So you look at the series against the Cavs, for instance, and in the closeout game, which was competitive, he was on the court for basically the entirety of the fourth quarter. The game before that, didn't play the fourth quarter because the game was a blowout. Game before that, doesn't close out the fourth quarter, but also it was a blowout. Every other game that's been competitive in the postseason, he's closed the game at the end. So I don't want to read too much into this one game, because we have, like, how many games at this point when you include the postseason and the regular season? We've got 82 other games at this point that he's played in that indicate that's not what his normal role is. We see this time and time again in the postseason, where there's one game, especially what happens in the first game of a series, where a team does something different, and then everybody assumes this is what the new normal is. Every once in a while it is. More often than not, they just go back to what they did the other 80-plus games of the season.
Okay, so that kind of leads us to where we are on Thomas Bryant. I'm going to just start reading off some numbers. 51, 48, 46, 46, 40, 32, 29, 29. All those numbers that I just read off are utility ownerships at the top of the DraftKings list. The salaries for those guys are all at least $7,600. The highest owned value option is $3,200 TJ McConnell. Is TJ McConnell the best value play today on the DraftKings slate?
Kind of by default to an extent, because there's just aren't other guys to be rostering for cheap. So I have the most exposure to him of any super cheap punt option, but it's not because I'm like, oh, this is like some kind of can't miss sort of, because like last game, TJ McConnell was great. In the minutes he played, he was on fire. He scored. It seemed like watching the game, he was scoring every second. TJ McConnell, steal, an assist, a point. TJ McConnell was always doing something, but he ends up playing 14 minutes while he played as well as he could possibly play. So it's really hard for me to expect that he's going to get more than like 15, 16 minutes at max, barring foul trouble or some sort of injury situation. So he is compared to the other options, but I don't feel great about him either.
Neither do I. I was very surprised to see him being at the top of that ownership list. Your next guy up is going to be Mitchell Robinson at 4K. Then you're at Miles McBride at 2,600. And then you finally get to Thomas Bryant, Obi Toppin, Mathurin, your campaigns, your Ben Shepherds. I find value weird because McConnell scares me because I don't feel like they want to play him enough minutes to make me happy. And then, you know, Mitchell Robinson's Mitchell Robinson. Don't have much of a take. His salary seems right at 4K. I think Miles McBride would be my preference here at 2,600. A little bit less ownership, not a ton less ownership. I just don't know where else we go for value right now.
Yeah, I mean, the other option for this game, too, is you could build lineups that are a little bit more balanced. Like, you could go to guys like Pascal Siakam at the captain spot. You could go to Miles Turner at the captain spot. You could go to Josh Hart at the captain spot. And then you don't have to go all the way down. Like, I still get myself exposure to, you know, like Cat, Halliburton, Brunson in the captain spots. But I do like taking shots on some of these other guys as well that I just mentioned them getting overweight to, primarily Hart, Siakam, and Turner. And then it's not as necessary to go all the way down to those super cheap guys.
I think that's fair. Do you think Ben Shepard is a guy we should talk about more today after game one?
Not really, for multiple reasons. First off, He's a really shitty fantasy producer, like really, really shitty.
Yeah.
So Ben Shepherd, let's see, what did he do for the entire season? He ended up playing.
If it helps, he's also a very shitty real player.
That's true as well. He just happened to be on the court when Aaron Nesmith made all of those threes. So anybody who's on the court when Nesmith made all those threes, like if you look at the plus minus numbers, they're going to come out looking good. But the entire rotation for Shepherd makes no sense. He didn't play the entire game. They put him in with 7 minutes left. By the way, he does nothing in those 7 minutes. He just shares the court with other guys who shoot the lights out. He did nothing.
He did less than nothing.
He did less than nothing.
He got bludgeoned.
6% usage rate, 1 assist, no other stats, and just played the final 7 minutes of the game. Could he play more minutes today? Yeah, like, sure, just because he was on the court and they found success. Maybe he's somebody who Carlisle dusts off again, but there's still a reality of he played 18 and a half minutes per game in the regular season, average under 12 fantasy points, and he's not going to play 20 minutes. So, like, let's say that Rick Carlisle liked what he saw and he gives Ben Shepherd 2 6-minute rotations or something today, and you get 12 minutes out of him. Well, 12 minutes out of Ben Shepherd, you're projecting for like 7 fantasy points.
Yeah. I don't get it. He looked awful while he was on the floor. Jalen Brunson was basically drooling every time he came down the floor, knowing that Ben Shepherd was going to try to guard him, and they were going to do it. They were running a Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns pick and roll, pick and pop, call it whatever you want, against Ben Shepherd and Obi Toppin. If the Knicks can get that matchup on a possession, that's going to be their favorite thing in the history of the world. If they're going to give them to him more than that, I don't know what we do here. But Ben Shepherd showed pretty clearly that he cannot guard Jalen Brunson. I don't know what Carlisle is going to do with that information, because we had I don't remember who it was that was like, I got a pretty big stand on Ben Shepherd. And we were like, well, don't do that. And then for the first half, it looked great. Now it's like, Carlisle going to play him more than we expect? That one's a true puzzle to me at 1% owned. Like, to me, he's more interesting than Campaign. I don't know if that's a compliment.
Well, I don't have exposure to either of them. So I guess if I had to pick, I'd probably still say Campaign just because he's the better fantasy producer. But if I'm going to punt and take a shot on somebody, I'd rather be Thomas Bryant if I'm going all the way down. Let me see. Is there anybody else for super cheap? Yeah, I guess I just updated. I did one more update with some ROI boost because I did want to get to a little bit more Miles Turner than what I had. So I do have now 2% of Campaign and 0% of Ben Shepherd.
Okay.
It's just kind of unnecessary to me.
I wanted to push one last update here. Pacers lineup officially just came in. Knicks hasn't. Not that I expect it to change, but
it won't.
These late starting lineups in the playoffs they don't matter, but they're very annoying.
Yeah, hey, Thibodeau is trying to get advantages where there aren't advantages. It was one thing that happened yesterday that is going to be death to the Knicks starters. There was no lead that Thibodeau is going to take those guys out in the fourth quarter today.
No, they are. They're going to be sticking around out there a lot. I mean, Bridges played 23 minutes in the first half, game 1, I believe. Let me make sure I'm right. Yeah, he sat for 49 seconds in the first half. Same in the third quarter, actually. He only sat for 40 seconds or something like that. Should we think about Mikal Bridges differently today if he's live to play the whole game?
Sort of. I mean, for me, we've been on opposite sides of Bridges for a lot of the postseason. He's been a contrarian guy who I've liked on a lot of slates. He's just kind of been all over the place. He has some horribly shitty fantasy games. He has other games where he's making a shot and the Knicks get him the ball more often, and he has ceiling games. He's a really, really high variance guy. And I've liked that from the playoff perspective because he's never been popular on any of these slates, whether it's been the classic slates, the showdown slates. So that's why I've made a point to get overweight to the field to him, just because I know there's a ceiling there and people typically aren't playing him. So I know what you're saying. It just doesn't change anything for me because that's where I've been at with him the entire postseason.
Yeah, I was never getting him. During that previous series, I wanted to, and it just never was happening. Now, I'm kind of intrigued that we're finally at the spot where Tibbs is going to let these minutes go crazy. And it might not just be him. It might be Anunoby. It might be Josh Hart as well. Down 0-1, I have to assume Tibbs is feeling like his back's against the wall.
Probably. Like not entirely. I don't assume you're going to predict he gets fired again. I don't think his back is against the wall in that sense.
I do think that he could get fired if they get swept, but that's a conversation for a different day. No, when I mean back against the wall, like he's done trying to do anything other than jam his dudes aggressively.
Yeah,
like,
and
I don't think he's like doing weird stuff, but like I think we're live for 44, 44, 44, 40, and however many minutes Towns can stay on without getting into foul trouble.
So when one thing I have to give Tibbs credit for is he really did change his approach this year where, he still plays guys crazy minutes at times, but he has laxed on it a little bit. I think he's recognized this has gotten him in trouble for like the last 14 years where his players get hurt. And, the Knicks were in a situation where they did benefit from some good injury luck against the Celtics, but they would have been favored in that series at that point in time where Tatum got hurt either way. But now you got to a point where the Knicks are kind of down in a way that they haven't been so far this postseason. And then I do think that probably makes Tibbs a little more likely to revert to his old habits, especially at this point in the season. If you're going to do it, there's at most, 12 games left in the season, 13, whatever it is. So at this point, I do think that we're probably more likely than ever to see Tibbs return to his old habits and just plays his core guys big minutes. That would be at the expense of Mitchell Robinson. It would be at the expense of Deuce McBride. The thing that would then make this slate really interesting is if the Knicks are going to run their starters out for massive minutes, that would mean that it's like only starters you want to play. Does that mean that somebody who scores like 0 fantasy points in the winning lineup, or is it just Thomas Bryant scores like 5 in 10 minutes or something like that, and that puts him in a winning lineup? So that would be the trickle-down effect if the Knicks play all their starters 40+.
Let's hit on Chris Presto's super chat for what I can only imagine is the first time we ever got one for $7. I don't mean that in any way, but that is like you got to really specifically type that one in. I like that. I wonder if is 7 like your lucky number, Chris? I'm just curious. Said, hi, Josh and Greg. I'm playing on FanDuel tonight, and I'm playing a lot of Jalen Brunson at captain and have 7 lineups of Miles McBride. Thank you, guys. Good.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that.
I mean, I'm not a huge Brunson guy today. Well, I'm not a huge Brunson guy in game 1. I'm more of a Brunson guy today, is the way that I wanted to say that, because they lost game 1. I feel like this series is going to have a lot of like rubber band swinging back the other way type stuff after every game. I like the Knicks here. I think the Knicks cover in this one. So I'm willing to have more Brunson today in comparison to where game 1, I wasn't really happy about it, but 15% owned right now, $400 more expensive than Halliburton. The only problem for me is that I'm kind of more interested in Halliburton than Brunson on FanDuel. Less owned at the captain, less owned at the utility, and slightly cheaper.
Yeah, let me check the FanDuel lineups that I've built. And I also have slightly more of Halliburton than Brunson, but it doesn't make me look at Brunson and say like he's a bad option at the MVP spot. Nothing like that.
Well, let's talk captain on DraftKings quickly. We've got Brunson and Towns both at 20%, which is interesting. Halliburton at 15, Josh Hart just north of 10, Siakam just shy of 10, and then everybody else is like 5 or below. Do you have a guy that's separating from the pack for you?
So, to an extent, like Halliburton's my favorite pay up option to get to as a captain. If we're going to the really expensive guys, they all project pretty comparably, but Halliburton's just the lowest owned of the Brunson, Towns, and Halliburton trio. So if you're paying up him, but the field's also kind of there, Towns, Brunson both look fine, but I'm kind of like neutral to the field on them. What I really do like doing is what I'd said before, the guys who I'm overweight to the field to, not in like a crazy significant way, but marginally on all of them. Josh Hart, Pascal Siakam, Mikal Bridges. Hart 11% owned in the captain spot. Siakam 7% owned. Bridges 4, and the other one also was I forgot to mention Miles Turner as well. Just because if he goes back to playing his normal minutes, if you guys remember, first quarter of last game, everybody's like, Turner or log off because he was hitting everything. And he started like 5 of 5 from the field and was the leading scorer at the end of the first quarter, and then just didn't play that much the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But I do like those mid-range captains who are not pulling much ownership to differentiate some lineup.
I just finished my lineups right now. Just uploaded. At the captain spot for me, biggest stand is Brunson, which makes me nervous. Second biggest stand is Halliburton, so I can handle that. I don't really have anything different, really. I'm not getting to Nembhard. I'm not getting to Bridges at captain. But the 4 guys that I have in double digits are the 4 guys that are double digit owned. And I kind of think that makes some sense in this series. Where I'm getting really different is on the margins at the flex, which I would imagine that's the spot you're seeing like the biggest distinction as well.
Yeah. I mean, one guy in particular, I'm just not playing very much of Aaron Nesmith. Didn't play very much from last game, and that looked good until it didn't. It looked good until there was 3 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
But Aaron Nesmith has seen a price increase now. He's not the best fantasy producer in the world. Also, he's somebody who's prone to foul trouble. His minutes aren't always super secure. Like, if Nembhard's making shots, he can end up playing more minutes, and some of those come away from Nesmith. But you got Nesmith at like a relatively expensive price point for Nesmith. And then on top of it too, just because the last memory people have of Aaron Nesmith is him hitting 6 threes in a row in a 2-minute stretch. My intuition is that he's going to come in a little bit more popular than what his ownership projection is for that reason. And I'm light on Nesmith for today. I think he's going to end up going over-owned, and hopefully he doesn't turn into, prime Steph Curry again.
The 4 guys that I'm most under the field on for Indiana, I'm happy about all of them, but it feels like one of them is likely to be a problem for me. Turner, Toppin, Nembhard, Nesmith. So I'm angling for a Thomas Bryant, Tyrese Halliburton big old game here. I'm not trusting that one at all. But yeah, my biggest under in terms of leverage are Turner, Toppin, Nembhard, Nesmith, most over on Thomas Bryant. So I'm taking the 1K Thomas Bryant path today.
Yeah, I mean, he's my favorite flatman punt guy. Not much competition from him. No. Yeah, I mean, the other options, it's Campaign, Ben Shepherd, super cheap. So he's better than those options. And once again, I don't know exactly what the center rotations are going to look like, but I feel pretty confident that Thomas Bryant is going to get minutes. And at 1K, that's kind of all you really need to do to potentially be viable on a slate, especially if starters are going to be playing extended minutes from the Knicks. So I'm with you. If I'm punting with somebody, it's Thomas Bryant.
We've got 6 minutes until lock. So I want to tell you guys this very, very quickly. The promo code is homestretch. Got about a month left of the NBA season. If you want to come in at Stokastic, $1 a day with that promo code, you'll get our NBA Core Sims package through the rest of the season. We've got showdowns essentially every day right now. Obviously, when the finals come, you'll have them as well. We've got the 2-day slates throughout all of the conference finals, as long as we could possibly have them. It's a great time to come in. You guys can see the screenshots right now. These are all just showdown screenshots from the playoffs. That could be you for $1 a day. This is normally $100. It's $30 for the next 30 days for you. So come on in, get the NBA Core Sims. $1 a day, promo code homestretch. All right. What are we missing? Whose name haven't we said yet that we should have said?
Let me look through my exposures here. So in terms of bench guys from the Pacers, we've talked a little bit about TJ McConnell. We talked a little bit about Thomas Bryant. Benedict Mathurin or anybody else making their way into lineups for you?
Not really. None of my exposures are interesting or worth talking about, which sucks for what we're doing here right now. But I mean, just going down the list of my most exposed guys: Brunson, Halliburton, Hart, Towns, Siakam, Anunoby. What am I supposed to say to that? This series is just The Knicks make it so there's not really any other direction for you to go. And then it's kind of like, which pacer do you want to pick to be the weird dude for today? For me, it's Thomas Bryant. Some people are getting TJ McConnell. Some people are going to get Benedict Mathurin. Some people are going to get Obi Toppin. But apparently mine is Thomas Bryant. But I mean, talking through your Halliburtons, your Siakams, like those guys just are. I mean, I hate Siakam in this series so much. He looked dreadful to me in that. Like every matchup he got didn't seem like it went well. I don't know if it's in his mind that he knows that OG Anunoby can guard him from years of Toronto or something, but I'm very curious to see if the defensive matchups change, because I think Towns is going to need a different matchup, and I don't think they have one, because I think that he's not worried about Miles Turner one-on-one, and they can't change that matchup because I don't think Siakam is big enough to handle it, which should make me want to have a lot more Towns.
And when Towns did have to guard Siakam, he looked pretty good. I remember a couple of stretches, a couple of plays down the stretch off memory where Siakam was isolated on Cat, and Cat did pretty well to lock him up. I remember him blocking him on at least one of those plays as well. I like Siakam for this game, though, just because of where his price point is at. He's $8,200 in the flex. In the captain spot, he's 12-3. He affords you some salary savings. The field's playing him a bunch as well, so it's not like this any kind of crazy stance or anything like that. The one guy we haven't really touched on here, and we've only got a couple of minutes left to go here anyway, but Mitchell Robinson. Continues to play minutes alongside Cat a little bit. I thought maybe they'd potentially get away from that in this series, but they still played it last game, so I guess those are here to stay.
They didn't do it in the first half. They only did it in the second half.
It's just that they did it. They don't have to do it again, but I keep thinking they're not going to do it, and they keep doing it. So I'm just bought in that this is something Tibbs likes to do.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if the defensive matchups from Indy on the Knicks is the biggest question mark that I have. Miles Turner was the primary defender, and I don't like to get too married to this stuff, but I think it is telling. Miles Turner was the primary defender on Karl Anthony Towns in the first game. 7 of 9 from the field for Karl Anthony Towns. They scored 50 points in 34 possessions in that scenario. But I don't know if they can switch the matchup, because I just don't think they have the bodies. They don't have another guy that I think can deal with Towns' size. That'll be curious. And if it's more Obi Toppin, I don't know how they ever stop the Knicks from getting to the rim. Like if Aaron Nesmith gets in any foul trouble, I'm very nervous about minutes for Obi Toppin, because at that point, I think that the Knicks are just going to be able to score whenever they want.
If Nesmith gets into foul trouble, I think the two guys who would benefit, maybe see a little bit more Nembhard and then Mathurin off the bench too.
Yeah, they would get the trickle down. If Nesmith gets in foul trouble, I think the biggest benefit is just the guys that can score from the Knicks. Because I think everybody then is in the wrong spot defensively for the Pacers. I kind of think that's what we're going to end up seeing today in game 2. We're about to find out. In 45 seconds, we are going to be locked. The real AD in chat asks, most confident, the least confidence player, Siakam at captain. I've got a lot of confidence in Karl Anthony Towns in this series in general. Siakam captain, it's totally fine to me. I don't have any problems there.
Yeah, I wish I had crazy stands for this game, but really my biggest stand is just not playing Nesmith much.
There we go. Well, I mean, the good news is, what could go wrong? It's not like that guy can just go out there and make every shot for 5 minutes.
No, he's never done that before.
The box, if you look at his little blurb for that 5-minute stretch at the end of the fourth, 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Make a 3, defensive rebound. Make 3, make 3, make 3, make 3, make 3, make free throw, make free throw. That is just, God, that was fun to watch. And now we're going to go watch it again because it is 8 o'clock. So playback.tv/Stokastic. That is where you can go to watch the game right now. I'm going to hang out and chat for a bit. If it's close late, I will be hopping back on to playback. Greg, do you have anything else that you want to tell the people?
No, I'm just going to be hanging out. Scuba, my dad, he made his way back through the weather yesterday. He didn't arrive at my house until 2 a.m. last night, but he was committed because he wanted to watch the Knicks game tonight. He didn't want to get stuck flying during the Knicks game today. So I'll be watching the game with him. I've got a Knicks shirt on today. I've got my futures bets on the Knicks. You got a Knicks hat on as well. So yeah, that's where my money's on today. My money's back in the Knicks.
Well, here we go. I agree. I think the Knicks win this game. I think the Knicks cover, but we'll find out. Go Pacers. Actually, go Knicks. I want as many games as I could possibly get. Good luck, everybody. Have some fun. Go to Playback. Sign up at Stokastic. Promo code Homestretch.